Western aid is arriving in Ukraine along the front lines. We see an increased artillery fire and modern anti-tank weapons reappearing along the front line, clearly already showing its effect by slowing down the Russians along big parts of the front line. At the same time, the first technicians that are trained in the F-16s have finished their training and are returning to Ukraine. So the first appearance, the first usage of F-16s is no longer in the distant future. We'll talk about this as well as about the exact developments along the front line and many things about troop generation, etc. in this situation report about the war in Ukraine. Hello and welcome. We'll start in the north here. We have a Russian advance in the direction of Staritsia, where the Russians have now advanced somewhat in this direction here after taking Bruravka. Something like this. I'm sorry that I really butchered this, but after taking this town roughly 5 days ago, we see how much they slow down. In Vovchansk, they also increase their advances, but while we had them here at the bridge in the last situation report on Monday, they are now being seen here on the, which is exactly here. So they are still not having crossed the river anywhere in force, and there's likely still Ukrainian presence north of the river here, again them slowing down in this regard. They are also pushing in this direction, but so far I cannot see significant changes in territory. South, further southeast on the eastern front, we are not able to see any change in territory over the last few days. Even though there are some fresh geolocalizations, I do not see anything having significantly changed in this regard. South of the Seversky Donetsk, in the last situation report, I told you that the Russians claimed they had captured Bilohorivka, but even Russian mill bloggers said that's nonsense and the Ministry of Defense is lying. I do not see anything even having changed in Bilohorivka over the last few days. The Ukrainians clearly seem to hold their positions they recently had. We do not have an admission by the Ukrainians that they lost positions, and we do not have geolocalizations that would prove any change in territory. We do have some changes at Chasiv Yar though. The Ukrainians lost positions in this area here on a width of 450 meters and 200 meters in depth, roughly up till here. The Ukrainians lost some positions, as Ukrainian mill bloggers also confirmed. And at the same time, the Russian managed to enter the town, not just here where we've seen them last episode, where they were here and here, but now they have reached the southwestern part as well. Now from the video it was unclear whether this now means full control, but we see that the Russians have at least temporarily reached that point, so they are slowly getting deeper into Chasiv Yar, even though maybe not permanently, but they'll definitely advance in this direction. Where we do have some more significant changes is to the southeast though, and there Klishchiivka is not far away from falling. Now the Russians already claim that it's fallen, and we can check the geolocalizations. Now this was one that is done here in the southwest where the Russians were attacked though, but we know that they had already presence here, and there is one here where the Russians are in the center of Klishchiivka, and I geolocalized it to this position here at the church. So they have raised the flag here. We know that they have been here. Let me see. Yeah, that was here. Actually, no, sorry. Yeah, my mistake. They've raised the flag here. So we know that they have at the very least advanced and taken this position here. And the other one was even further south, like roughly here. So as of now, it's quite possible that the Ukrainians actually lost Klishchiivka over the last 2 days. Not fully confirmed yet. Ukrainians' general staff claims that they defeated, that the situation is under control there. But unfortunately, the Ukrainian general staff also isn't fully accurate with what it's reporting. So it seems that the Ukrainians at the very least lost significant territory inside of Klishchiivka. The day after this geolocalization here, we had a Russian turtle tank drive through the whole of town and return while being fired at, mostly with FPV drones, but it shows that the Ukrainian presence inside of Klishchiivka wasn't even strong anymore to stop a tank rumbling right past them. So Klishchiivka either has fallen or is in the process of doing so. Further south at Avdiivka, we have some territorial changes as well. Now, the Russians did a mechanized attack on Novo-Alexandrivka, which is up here. There is a geolocalization of this as well, reaching the outskirts here. The thing is, the Russians claim that they dropped off infantry here and were succeeding, basically saying that we gained a foothold there, whereas Ukrainian mill bloggers say this is not true, we defeated them there. We know that they reached that point, but we do not know how it ended, so it's possible that Novo-Alexandrivka is now, the fighting is now starting inside of it, that the Russians gained a foothold, but it's not certain as of now. The Russians managed to advance, though, along this tree line here to the south in the direction of Sokil, and they advanced in the tree lines here. So they are pushing from the north and from the east towards Sokil over the last few days. Further south, they've now taken the rest of Netailove. We see a Russian presence down here to the river. They've taken all of this. Netailove now has definitely fallen. I said in the last situation report that it's basically lost at this point, and now we have the confirmation of this. Further south, I can still not see any change in Krasnohorivka, but we do have some changes at Novo-Mikhailivka. Here the Russians advanced to the east and reached this tree line here. Not a big advance, but we see Russian presence here now, probably having taken those positions now, and the front line is probably along this line here as well. So no significant change, but some minor change. On the Oblast border, we have a fresh geolocalization inside of we have a fresh geolocalization inside of Staromayorsk at this point here, but the front line is either has not changed significantly, or it is in the Russians have returned here, because this was on pro-Ukrainian maps over the last few days already within Russian hands. So I'm not fully able to confirm that there was any significant change. What we do not see is any advance of the Russians further north in Staromayorsk, and I do not see any change in Uroshaine recently either. Further west, I do not see any change in territory. Also not from Orechiv. Now we have some fresh geolocalizations in the north of the town that appeared over the last few days. They indicate that Robotine might be fully in Russian hands now. For instance, a basement or a bunker in the north of it is a Ukrainian FPV drone flying into it and exploding inside, showing that it's occupied by the Russians. But this was already being told in the last situation report, that the Russians likely took Robotine either completely or almost completely, so I do not see any change in territory. The next significant change we have is on the Crimean Peninsula, because while fighting here is continuing, I cannot confirm any significant changes, but what we do have is pictures here, satellite pictures that seem to show that the Cyclone has in fact sunk. Now the Ukrainians claimed it did, but we have not seen any video evidence. Those were the ships on a recent satellite picture from the 17th of May, and from the 20th the ships have gone here, and a rescue ship is exactly where the Cyclone was at the last time. You see it here was the Cyclone, and now the rescue ship is here, which would indicate that the ship has likely sunk on its in the harbor. Why else would the ship be here? Also, we see a hit here in the building. As you can see, it was also hit, but that's not conclusive, full proof yet that the Cyclone has sunk. It's just an indication that it likely has sunk. It's still a slight possibility that the ship will reappear in a couple of days. Other than that, we talked about the artillery ammunition situation. Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, said that they have enough artillery shells for the first time in the war. They don't complain about artillery shells anymore, and he even claimed it's for 2 months already. That's utter nonsense. it's as simple as said. I have no idea how he comes to that conclusion, unless, of course, his staff is not telling him the truth, because soldiers along the front line were reporting this is absolute nonsense. Still, though, while the Ukrainians still don't have enough shells, slowly the situation gets better. We have here Reuters, for instance, a report that the situation is improving. And we have another example here from Wolfchansk, where we can see Ukrainians using Javelin anti-tank missiles again. Now, we've seen them at the beginning of the war, but we have not seen them in quite a while. And now we see two of them here on the front line again, showing once again that the Ukrainian supply situation is clearly improving as of now. Also, there was a Ukrainian cruise missile strike on Luhansk, and according to Telegram channels, it hit a command center in which 13 military personnel was killed. Among them, the officers, and 26 were injured. And the interesting part is who is supposedly being injured. And that is, according to claims, the Colonel General Gennady Anashkin. He is the commander of the Southern Military District. So one of the highest Russian officers supposedly was injured in that attack on Luhansk. In troop generation, we have some informations from Russia that the Russian government is now directly targeting the German minority inside of Russia for recruitment. Not much of a surprise here. Why would they restrict their recruitment on ethnic minorities of on different ethnic minorities and exclude the Germans from that at the same time? And in troop generation, we have some information, or in modification, etc., from the Ukrainian side. Now, this supposedly shows a Ukrainian naval drone launching missiles from at sea. The Ukrainian government, the SBU, has now said, and we can see it's a couple of them, the SBU has said that they managed to modify the Sea Baby into carrying Grad missiles. We see it here. These are the Sea Babies, and we can see that apparently they will carry 6 Grad missiles. Now, 6 isn't very much, and the Grad is an area weapon. Launching it from at sea is making it even less likely to hit something. But I guess, depending on which target is being aimed at, this would allow Ukraine to actually strike land targets on the other side of the Black Sea. So while I have my doubts about the efficiency, unless you really want to hit big area targets, this will actually allow Ukraine to strike something, maybe even here somewhere on the eastern Black Sea coast. So a new escalation of threat towards the Russians that is being done with this development. Also, the Ukrainians are saying that they've started serial production of self-guided FPV drones that have thermal imaging cameras, so it can work at night. I wouldn't be surprised if we see flare launchers on tanks in the near future, if infrared guidance, automatic infrared guidance is finding its way into drones that do tank hunting. This might actually be the future. This might actually be a modification we will see in the future. But we see that technical innovation is happening here, and the Ukrainians hope that they will be building several thousand a month. So from what I've seen, from what I've read here in the article, it's not guaranteed yet. Still, though, other good news: Ukraine is getting back the first 10 technicians for the F-16s, as they have finished their training. This would mean the first technicians for F-16s are in Ukraine, which would allow a deployment in the near future. And at the same time, this is a pro-Ukrainian Twitter page, and they are saying that partisan training is happening inside of Ukraine. I cannot comment more than this, except that this would obviously be an admission that it might be necessary in the current situation of the front line, that people would have to start guerrilla warfare. At the same time, it would obviously increase the problems that the Russians would face. Guerrilla warfare requires preparation. It requires aid from abroad, and in times where a transport plane can't just fly over the front line and drop equipment and drop officers to guide them, it all has to be prepared. You have to prepare ammo dumps, you have to prepare stockpiles of explosives. To do what you do, you need to establish training up front so the people already know what to do and don't need guidance from someone that is being flown in from special forces. You have to establish command structures to make it all efficient. You have to basically plan for it and prepare for it, especially in times like this, where supplying them hundreds of kilometers behind the front line is close to impossible. And we see Ukraine is doing this. So even if the front line is moving further, Russia might face significant additional problems that are being prepared by Ukraine here. And from Russia, we have more news in the political sphere. Russia, Putin has thrown out another deputy defense minister, Colonel General Yuri Sadovenko. He was in the defense ministry since 2013 on this job, so he's probably one of Shoigu's cronies. And at the same time, Major General Popov was arrested. Now, he was the guy responsible for Russia's defense here in Zaporizhzhia, where he fought against the Ukrainians, where he led the Russian defense against the Ukrainians in their main thrust towards the south. He became well known and kind of infamous at that point for an audio message that was leaked where he complained about lack of rotation, about the efficiency of Ukrainian counter-battery fire and other things, and after that he was sacked. Now they are threatening him. He's being arrested for fraud charges, supposedly stealing 100 million ruble, so roughly $1 million, and at the same time they claim that he sold 2,000 tons of metal products that were intended for fortification work. Whether that is the truth or whether it's related to somehow punishing him for what he did then is obviously a different question. And Russia wants to redraw its sea borders here in the Finnish Sea. I'm not sure how it's called in English. Along here, they want to draw the naval borders anew, and in front of Kaliningrad. The important thing is that from what I found, apparently they want to declare parts of it to be inshore areas. The difference there is if it's your territorial waters in the ocean, it can still be used by other navies. It can still be used by other nations, but if it's inshore, then it's your private property basically, and you can ban the usage of other nations. This is in breaking a contract that was done by the Soviet Union in the past, but again, the exact details aren't clear as of yet, at least. And the British defense minister said that intelligence agencies are reporting that China either already has delivered lethal aid or is about to do this. He has not presented any proof of this, so it might still be false. But if it's true, then it's a clear sign that Western deterrence is no longer working. A sign for the West to question itself what it could have done better, and probably the behavior of the West, the hesitancy over the last 2 years when it came to direct confrontation with Russia, not militarily, mind you, but in other regards, basically drawing red lines for yourself, but never drawing red lines for Russia, might have been one of the reasons for this. And Russia is doubling down on this because now they publish pictures and videos about their exercises with tactical nukes. In the past, those have been mostly secret, but now it's in public, obviously to intimidate the West. And as we've seen, the German Chancellor, for instance, is one of them who runs to Twitter every time the Russians cough and declares that nuclear war is really horrible. So apparently their attempts are working. Ukraine's grain exports have been good, though. In April, the British say in April, the Ukrainian harbors exported 6.6 million tons of goods. That is the highest point since the beginning of the war. So the naval corridor that Ukraine established is working, and it's showing the impressive successes of the Ukrainians to push the mighty Black Sea Fleet so far away and diminish its forces, destroy ships of it, that now the Western Mediterranean, they can actually establish a naval corridor, and Russia has limited means to do something against it. And from Germany, more news. The German government is opposing the usage of Russia's central bank money that is frozen inside of Europe for Ukraine. Germany so far only agrees to or only considers the usage of interest on this money to be used for Ukraine. We talked in the past that the US Congress made a law that would allow usage of frozen money for Ukraine directly, basically taking it away from the Russians. Germany is opposing this. And in international support, we have we have reports from Ukraine that the US said several times, should Ukraine use US weapons in Russia, they will stop military aid. This is at least the interpretations that are coming from Ukraine, that the Ukrainian government was threatened should they use, for instance, the ATACMS to strike one of the many bridges here in the north, that this would lead to them cutting off the aid. Denmark is sending an additional 800 million euros dollars in aid. 300 million of those are for air defense, artillery, shells, anti-tank mines, and F-16s. Another part will go into maintenance and into investments in the Ukrainian defense industry, so more investment coming for Ukraine's defense industry. Spain also announced a new aid package, including Leopard 2 tanks that would come in June. The number is unclear, but it should be a one-digit number, if I'm not completely mistaken, at least as for now. Sweden has announced they will give $7 billion in 24 to 26 to Ukraine in military aid, and according to reports, they have just ordered new CV-90 IFVs for themselves, but the article says more new built CV-90 vehicles to expand Ukraine's capabilities. So apparently they are going to build new ones for Ukraine as well. Lithuania is giving ammunition, anti-drone equipment, drones, generators, and folding beds. They will also provide 6 radars for Ukraine for air defense. And the United Kingdom says they have delivered 80 air defense missiles, over 20 mine clearing systems, long-range surveillance and reconnaissance drones, over 1 million rounds of ammunition for infantry weapon, and 20 Viking amphibious armored all-terrain vehicles. Those are BVS-10, these Hägglund all-terrain transport vehicles for Ukraine. Rheinmetall announced they will start a new joint venture with Ukraine, and the goal is to start producing air defense within 2 years. So more aid and especially more capabilities coming for Ukraine. And finally, we have something from Novorossiysk. Now, in the last episode, I showed you this here, how the Russians were shooting down a drone, and you could see all the shells flying, all the rounds flying towards the town, and everything that goes up has to come down somewhere. And we have a video here of Russians uploading it where supposedly it hit, and you can see the engine had some impact, faced some impact, and in the end he's pulling it out. Yeah, that's what is in the hood of his car by now. That was it from me for now. If you enjoyed this situation report, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment. What do you think about the current situation and the Western aid? And do you think China will actually dare to give military aid to Russia? If you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. And this channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone already supporting this channel. And that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.